That shows to what extent they have declined. I've been told that they are in big trouble financially, hence why they had to get rid of most of their expensive stall.
$14 million. That's what Harry and Meghan paid for their Montecito mansion back in 2020. The sprawling 9-bedroom estate that was supposed to represent everything they'd left behind and everything they were building toward. Freedom from the palace, independence from the firm, a California dream big enough to hold all their ambitions. And now, according to multiple reports swirling through royal watching circles, that very same mansion might be quietly listed as what's called a pocket listing, an off-market sale designed to avoid the publicity of a traditional real estate transaction. Think about that for a moment. The couple who orchestrated the most dramatic royal exit in modern history, who signed $100 million deals with Netflix and Spotify, who were supposed to prove that they didn't need the monarchy's support to thrive, may now be trying to sell their American palace without anyone noticing. The question isn't just whether the rumors are true. The question is how we got here. How did the Duke and Duchess of Sussex go from being the hottest brand in entertainment to potentially downsizing their lifestyle in just 4 years? When Harry and Meghan first arrived in Montecito, the narrative was triumphant. They'd escaped the constraints of royal life. They'd chosen love over duty, authenticity over protocol. The mansion with its 16 bathrooms, its rose gardens, its children's cottage, its tea house wasn't just a home. It was a statement. We made it. We don't need you. We're going to build an empire on our own terms. The press releases flowed. Archwell Productions, Archwell Audio, the Oprah interview that shattered viewership records, book deals and speaking engagements, and the promise of content that would reshape how the world saw this couple. They weren't running away from anything. They were running towards something bigger. But somewhere between the promise and the present, the math stopped working.
I understand that things are very rocky with them at the moment. We have to have one tail left eye in sympathy.
The deals that were supposed to fund their independence have dried up or dramatically diminished. The content they were supposed to create either never materialized or failed to connect with audiences. The lifestyle they established, the staff, the security, the private jets, the wardrobe, all of it requires income. And income, it turns out, requires actually delivering something people want to pay for. That Montecito mansion, the physical embodiment of their post-royal dream, now looks less like a fresh start and more like a monument to miscalculation. The cascade of professional failures didn't happen overnight. It accumulated like water damage, slow and persistent until suddenly the ceiling caves in. Start with Netflix. The cooking show that Meghan filmed at her own home. The one where she was supposed to channel her inner Ina Garten and establish herself as a lifestyle guru. It's done. 1 season and canceled. Not renewed. Not on hiatus. Finished. With love, Meghan was supposed to demonstrate that the Duchess could carry a show on her own, that her star power transcended her connection to the royal family. Instead, it demonstrated something far less flattering. Audiences didn't show up. The podcast deal with Spotify, once trumpeted as a game-changing partnership, produced exactly 1 season of Archetypes before the relationship soured so publicly that a Spotify executive allegedly called the couple grifters. That word leaked and spread because it captured something that many in the industry had been whispering. The Sussexes were better at negotiating deals than delivering on them. And then there's Harry's speaking career, which provides perhaps the starkest illustration of their declining market value. When the Duke first stepped onto the American speaking circuit, he commanded serious money. Reports indicated that his appearance at a JP Morgan event earned somewhere around $1 million. The novelty of a real prince, one willing to discuss mental health and family trauma with apparent candor, that had genuine value. Corporate event planners would pay premium rates for that kind of star power. But Lady Colin Campbell and other royal watchers have reported that Harry's speaking fee has collapsed to somewhere between $30,000 and $50,000. That's not a small decline. That's a 95% drop. That's the market saying loudly and clearly that whatever Harry was selling in 2021, people aren't buying in 2025. The novelty wore off. The candor started feeling rehearsed. The prince, who was supposed to bring something unique to the American landscape, became just another celebrity with a story he'd already told too many times. Now layer in the costs. California's state income tax alone takes over 13% of earnings at the top bracket. Security for a family with Harry's profile doesn't come cheap, with estimates suggesting they spend several million annually just on protection. Staff salaries, property maintenance, travel, the lifestyle that Meghan reportedly insists upon maintaining, all of it adds up. When the income was flowing, the math worked. When the income streams turned into trickles, the math became a problem, a mansion-sized problem.
When Prince Harry walked into a room, everybody wanted to meet him. Now when Prince Harry walks into a room, everybody wants to avoid him.
There's a building at Netflix headquarters that tells a story nobody at the company once told. 2 storage rooms, according to reports, now overflow with as-ever products. the jam that Meghan promoted with such enthusiasm during her cooking show, the candles she described as perfect for creating ambiance, the wine that was supposed to pair beautifully with her carefully curated recipes, the flower petal sprinkles that, well, nobody's entirely sure what those were supposed to accomplish. All of it sitting in boxes, taking up space that Netflix would probably rather use for something else. Staff members have reportedly been walking out with 10 free products at a time. Not because there's some generous employee appreciation program, because there's simply too much inventory and too few buyers. When your promotional strategy becomes please someone take this stuff, you've moved past marketing into something closer to desperation. Netflix offered the predictable corporate spin. These products exist for promotional purposes, but that explanation collapses under even basic scrutiny. Promoting what exactly? The show that got canceled? The brand that's struggling to find an audience? The partnership that's produced nothing but embarrassment for everyone involved? You don't need 2 storage rooms full of promotional materials for a show that no longer exists. You need 2 storage rooms full of promotional materials when you've catastrophically misjudged demand. The jam and candles and wine sitting in those Netflix storage rooms represent something more uncomfortable than just a business miscalculation. They represent the gap between Meghan's vision of herself and the market's response to that vision. She believed she was building a lifestyle empire. Netflix believed they were partnering with a cultural force. The storage rooms suggest that both beliefs were wrong. Every business makes inventory mistakes. Overestimating demand is practically a rite of passage for consumer product launches. But what happened with As Ever goes beyond typical miscalculation into something that looks more like fundamental market rejection. And then came the glitch that made everything worse. Somebody at As Ever made a technical error. The kind of error that companies dread because it reveals information that was supposed to stay hidden. The website briefly displayed inventory numbers, and what those numbers showed was staggering. Approximately 500,000 unsold items, 500,000 products sitting in warehouses, waiting for customers who weren't coming. To put that in perspective, 500,000 units of anything represents a massive production run. That's not a small batch artisanal operation. That's industrial-scale manufacturing, based on projections that proved wildly optimistic. Somebody looked at market research, or perhaps skipped the market research entirely, and decided that the world wanted 500,000 items with Meghan's name attached. The world disagreed. Meghan's damage control was swift and unintentionally revealing. The surplus existed, she indicated, because As Ever was preparing for international expansion. The products weren't unsold. They were pre-positioned for global domination. Any day now, those jams and candles would be flying off shelves in London, Paris, Tokyo.
We forget the ridiculous things that Meghan did right from the off to make life incredibly difficult for the super PR team. Meghan wanted to make everything about herself, make sure that she got the camera angle, make sure that she got the front page. That was the goal.
But here's the thing about selling food products internationally. It's complicated. Every country has different regulations for consumable goods. Labeling requirements vary. Import duties apply. Distribution networks need to be established. You don't just ship American jam to European stores and hope for the best. There are rules. There are inspections. There are partnerships that need to be formed and licenses that need to be obtained. Nobody has produced any evidence that As Ever has built the infrastructure required for legitimate international distribution. No announcements about foreign retail partnerships. No filings with international food safety agencies. No distribution deals with overseas logistics companies. Just the claim that expansion explains everything, offered without supporting details to an audience growing increasingly skeptical. The simpler explanation is also the more damaging one. As Ever produced far more product than anyone actually wanted to buy, and now Meghan's team is scrambling to explain away 500,000 reminders of that failure. Behind closed doors in Montecito, the inventory problem has reportedly become a marital problem. Sources speaking to various outlets have painted a picture of growing tension between Harry and Meghan over money, risk, and the future of their financial partnership. The Duke, according to these reports, has been expressing concerns about their burn rate. The couple's expenses continue while their income has contracted, and Harry apparently grasps the math even if he struggled to change it. One particularly telling detail emerged from these reports. Harry has allegedly told Meghan directly that we can't afford this in reference to her expansion plans for As Ever. Not we should be careful. Not maybe we should slow down. The blunt assessment that their financial situation doesn't support her ambitions. Coming from a man who was born into wealth and has never had to worry about money in the traditional sense, that warning carries weight. There's an irony here that's hard to ignore. This is the same Harry who famously admitted during an interview that he didn't understand America's First Amendment after just a short time living in the country. The concept of free speech, apparently, was something he needed to study up on. Now that same Harry finds himself wrestling with another American concept that might be even harder for a former prince to accept. Market forces, supply and demand. The brutal reality that in capitalism, it doesn't matter who you are or who you married or what title you once held. If people don't want what you're selling, you fail. The market doesn't care about your bloodline.
But Meghan's not giving in, right? She believes that she has the star power, if not more star power, with the stories that she might have.
Harry reportedly recognizes that their situation requires adjustment. Meghan, by all accounts, disagrees. If Harry represents caution in this partnership, Meghan represents something closer to defiance. Sources describe her as adamant that this is not the time to play it safe. Where Harry sees financial danger, Meghan apparently sees the need to double down, to spend more, to expand faster, to prove the doubters wrong through sheer force of will and investment. The price increases provide the most concrete evidence of this philosophy. As ever, products that weren't selling at their original prices have gotten more expensive. The spreads went up, the tea went up, the wine went up. In conventional business logic, when products aren't moving, you lower prices to stimulate demand. You find the price point where supply meets demand. Meghan has done the opposite. She's raised prices on products that were already sitting unsold, a strategy that only makes sense if you believe the problem is perception rather than product. Here's where it gets fascinating and slightly concerning. Multiple sources have reported that Meghan genuinely believes As Ever represents her path to billionaire status. Not millionaire, billionaire. The kind of wealth that would make her a player on the level of Oprah or the Kardashians. She sees the current struggles as temporary setbacks on the road to generational empire building. This isn't necessarily delusional in the way critics might suggest. Plenty of successful entrepreneurs faced early failures before finding their breakthrough. The difference is that most successful entrepreneurs adjust based on market feedback. They pivot when products don't sell. They listen when customers reject their offerings. They don't interpret 500,000 unsold items as confirmation that they should charge more. Meghan's response to failure hasn't been adaptation. It's been acceleration. More products, higher prices, bigger claims. Whether that represents admirable determination or dangerous denial probably depends on how the next year unfolds. But for Harry, watching the bank balance while his wife insists on expansion, the present is already concerning enough. The desperation has started showing in the marketing tactics. Take Valentine's Day. As Ever introduced special Valentine's bundles, romantic collections packaged with red ribbons and holiday-themed messaging. Sounds festive enough, except sources indicate these bundles consisted largely of existing inventory repackaged for the occasion. Old products, new ribbons, same fundamental problem of stuff that wasn't selling. Then there's the eBay situation. Reports have emerged of As Ever products appearing on the secondary market in quantities and patterns that suggest something beyond individual resellers cleaning out their closets. The volume, according to some observers, indicates possible coordinated selling. The implication, though unconfirmed, is that Meghan's own team might be using eBay to move product that isn't selling through official channels. If true, that would represent a significant escalation from mere business struggles to something that looks like panic. The $13 bookmarks became a particular flashpoint. As Ever introduced bookmarks at that price point, and the online response was brutal. Customers and critics alike savaged the products for what they described as cheap quality and poor design. $13 for a bookmark that looked and felt like it cost a fraction of that to produce. The disconnect between price and perceived value became its own mini-scandal, reinforcing the narrative that As Ever prioritizes margin over quality. These aren't the tactics of a company confident in its product market fit. These are the tactics of a company trying to generate cash flow from inventory that isn't moving organically. When you're repackaging old stock for holidays, when your products are flooding secondary markets, when customers are mocking your price to quality ratio, you're not building a brand, you're liquidating one. As if the business failures weren't enough, Meghan now faces a threat to her cultural relevance on American soil. Prince William and Catherine are planning a major visit to the United States, timed to coincide with America's 250th anniversary celebrations in 2026. The palace is positioning this tour as a statement. William and Catherine represent the future of the monarchy, young and photogenic and carefully managed to maximize positive coverage. Notably, King Charles and Queen Camilla will reportedly not be attending. This isn't the whole royal family coming to America. This is specifically the next generation, the heir and his wife, the couple who will one day sit on the throne. The positioning is unmistakable. Look at our future. For Meghan, according to multiple sources, this planned visit has provoked fury. America was supposed to be her territory, the country where she grew up, the market where she was building her post-royal identity, the landscape where she would prove that she didn't need the monarchy's support. And now William and Catherine will arrive with all the pomp and coverage that comes with official royal visits, reminding Americans that there's only one actual royal family, and Meghan isn't part of it anymore. The timing couldn't be worse for the Sussexes. While they struggle to sell jam and maintain their lifestyle, William and Catherine will glide through photo opportunities and state dinners, generating exactly the kind of positive coverage that has eluded Harry and Meghan for years. The contrast will be unavoidable and unflattering. One couple representing institutional continuity and careful brand management, the other couple representing podcast deals that soured, Netflix shows that got canceled, and 500,000 unsold products in warehouses. Meghan has always seemed to struggle with being overshadowed. The William and Catherine visit threatens to overshadow her more completely than anything, since she left royal life. Perhaps what's most striking about Meghan's current situation is how it follows a pattern visible throughout her public life. The shameless pivot, the willingness to pursue opportunities regardless of context or timing, the apparent inability to read how her actions appear to others. Consider the Valentino funeral. Reports emerged that Meghan attempted to attend designer Valentino Garavani's memorial service, essentially trying to crash a funeral for someone she had no meaningful personal connection to. The implicit logic seemed to be that appearing at high-profile events, even funerals, maintained visibility. The celebrity industrial complex rewards those who show up, regardless of whether they were actually invited or welcome. This impulse toward insertion would be aggressive, but perhaps understandable, if the timing weren't so problematic. While Meghan was reportedly maneuvering toward this funeral, her own father Thomas Markle was recovering from an amputation. Her estranged father, the man she hasn't publicly acknowledged in years, was dealing with a serious medical situation while his daughter concerned herself with being seen at a designer's memorial. The optics weren't unfortunate. They were revealing. Now there's the Melania documentary situation. Reports indicate that Meghan has become fascinated by the success of the Amazon documentary about the former First Lady. A project that rehabilitated Melania Trump's image and generated significant buzz has apparently inspired Meghan to pursue something similar. She's allegedly pitching herself to Jeff Bezos and Amazon, hoping to secure her own documentary deal. The new PR team she's brought on faces what might be an impossible task. Rehabilitating Meghan's image requires that Meghan stop doing things that damage her image. The pattern of shameless pivots and tone-deaf maneuvers continues even as handlers presumably advise against them. You can't fix what refuses to stop breaking itself. So we return to where we began, the mansion, the $14 million estate that represented everything Harry and Meghan wanted to become. If the pocket listing rumors prove accurate, if the Sussexes are indeed quietly trying to sell their Montecito home without attracting attention, what comes next? The options are limited. They could downsize within Montecito, finding something smaller and more affordable, while maintaining their California presence. They could relocate entirely, perhaps to Texas, where there's no state income tax, or to Portugal, where Harry has reportedly been eyeing real estate. They could attempt some kind of reconciliation with the palace, though the bridges burned there may be beyond repair. Or they could continue as they are, spending down whatever reserves remain until the math becomes truly impossible to ignore. Harry, by most accounts, is miserable. The man who seemed so certain 4 years ago that leaving his family would bring happiness now appears trapped in a different kind of cage. His wife's ambitions continue to drive their decisions. Her refusal to accept defeat continues to define their strategy. His concerns about their finances apparently fall on ears determined not to hear them, and Meghan, she remains adamant that success is coming, that the current struggles are temporary, that as ever will make her a billionaire, that she'll prove everyone wrong. Whether that represents resilience or denial, only time will tell. What we know right now is this: the couple who wanted to be bigger than the royals, who wanted to prove they didn't need the institution they'd abandoned, who wanted to build an American empire on their own terms, that couple may not be able to afford their American palace much longer. The dream they bought for $14 million in 2020 might be hitting the market in 2025, proof that wanting something badly enough doesn't make it happen. The mansion sale rumors remain unconfirmed, but the financial pressures that would explain such a sale are documented and growing. The story isn't over, the stakes remain high, and the next chapter, whether it involves a new house, a new strategy, or a new understanding between husband and wife about what's actually possible, that chapter is still being written. The comment section is yours. Tell me where you stand, and subscribe for the next update.